Warning. The following audio drama contains scenes of graphic depictions surrounding the medieval Black Death, which may disturb some listeners. Discretion is advised. Previously.
Why are you here?
There is trouble back at the town. So many are dying.
I'm not sure what you think I am able to do.
Would you perchance be a sorcerer?
I am a guardian, a priest from a faraway place.
Not any kind of priest we know. Witch!
Demon!
Can you save her?
I can only offer inspiration. If it is her path, she will travel it.
Where am I?
What is this place?
Lies.
Journey toward the white sun you see ahead of you.
Not even the clergy have been spared.
We are wicked sinners, and God is taking us by way of this great mortality. You may confess upon your neighbor, a stranger, or, because times are so graven, even a woman, if she be willing.
Father, come with me to our manor out in the countryside where you will be safe.
Do not speak to me of death when you haven't even lived.
We cannot go. Seems I may be seeing your mother sooner than I thought.
Jehan, you don't want to touch me.
I could still take you with me and look after you. He can stay behind with the others and join my father at the manor, because my mother has it too.
I can't.
Then you will die with him.
Surrender not the flame. Episode 6, Armor of Flame. Two days had passed, and already the thickness of spirit energy had regained considerable weight. At first, Elouan's plan succeeded. The impact of the cold water upset the vibrations of his body so that it became impossible for spirit energies to harmonize with its sensory systems. He did black out momentarily, but came to, realizing his body was in a process of slowed vibration. Too slow for the rapidity of a disembodied awareness to manage. After pulling himself into the boat, he rowed further away to gain a psychological as well as visual sense of distance between himself and the epidemic. Eventually, he dozed off into a deep slumber, coming to only when the boat floundered onto the small beach. Still sluggish, he climbed off the boat and took a moment to lie in the sand and promptly fell back asleep. Now awake, he scanned the environment. Butting up against the beach were shrubs with trees deeper in. Scanning the horizon, he saw a few other islands, both east and west, and a few much larger than where he stood, jutting out with mighty stone hilltops. Nonetheless, he welcomed where he had landed and trudged into the greenery to find food. As his strength returned, he sensed the invisible multitude still hovering about, regardless of how far he was from Villa de la Bay. He didn't know how he would deal with the onslaught of the dead a second time. There had to be some way to shield his senses, to armor his psyche. He plopped himself onto the beach and assumed a meditative posture. First, he inwardly prayed to those souls whose job it was to rescue the newly deceased. These rescuers would surround the naturally confused and bewildered who had died, answer their questions, then lead them compassionately into the spirit world. He then prayed to his own spirit guides, who were a group of beings near the level of angels in terms of wisdom and strength. He hoped they would give him advice on how to remain vibrationally safe from being overrun again. They gave him the impression they were doing all they could to keep unwanted spirits at bay, but there were so many, and everything was still quite chaotic. They couldn't keep up against the multitudes that could see Elouan's light. It seemed his years and rank as guardian did not prepare him for this kind of trial. As the blue of the sky turned to the tapestry of starlight, the position of the constellations had him thinking he had drifted southward along the coast. He didn't fear for his return. He trusted that whatever force landed him here would guide him safely to where he needed to be next. Elouan spent the next 2 days eating, resting, and gathering his strength. By the 3rd day, the heaviness of crowding spirits mounted. No matter how far from the mainland he might have been, his light was still a beacon in that in-between world of earth and spirit. If any time was more pressing for Golda and Weimark's help, it was now. Elouan took his meditative position upon the sand and risked the sovereignty of his senses to connect with the souls of his brethren. It took several minutes to soothe his consciousness as he feared a piercing entry from unwanted plague dead. But when he reached a certain pitch, he cast his awareness through the dense fog of the deceased to focus back on his mountain home. He felt a cold breeze whirling. It wasn't a harsh wind, but a gentle waft that settled the snow peacefully outside the cave dwellings. The sensation brought an added level of relief, the recognition of a climate he was so familiar with. His mind soared toward a cave at the base of the school temple complex. He missed the cave's opening and slammed through the rock that heralded the aperture. The stone sucked him in, taking his awareness through the depth of the mountainside until it opened to show his beloved master Uric, sitting in a circle with other masters. They were meditating within the glow of candles circled around them. A sense of providence warmed the atmosphere.
Elouan, we recognize you. You need to focus.
In another cave, Weimark and Golda sat with a handful of acolytes, meditating to assess Elouan's situation. In fact, the whole monastery was aware of him. The entire school felt the loss of so many people dying across the continent, as it had been when the pestilence struck the Far East. But this time, one of their own stood in the middle of it. Tapping into the energy of his soul, they perceived in greater detail the nature of his harrowing experience.
There are so many dead around him. He cannot block out their voices.
Elouan, you must focus.
Focus upon the flame, Elouan. Let that light guide you. Let it cast out the darkness surrounding you.
Elouan's body rocked with the intensity of concentration. He knew if he could blend his consciousness into the inner image of a bright candle flame, become one with it, the union might just give him the type of armor he needed. But it wasn't easy. He felt the warmth of the flame, but not its vitality.
It protects you. You and the light are one and the same.
You and the light are one.
Elouan suddenly remembered no separation existed anywhere in the universe. All things were connected and thus one. All he had to do was let go of his own sense of individuality, toss away his notion of personal identity. Yes, he was a unique manifestation in the universe, but he was not carved out and separated from it. Rather, he was much more like a singular whirlpool that gives an illusion of separateness in the water, but is still part and parcel of the water itself. The revelation exploded his soul. As he released his prideful individuality, he spiritually became the fullness of the flame's vitality. His unique perspective and personality did not dissolve in the eruption, but remained protected within life's eternal power, shielded from the minds of those spirits desperate to connect, so long as he remained blended with the eternal flame.
If you must help, help those that are left behind.
Elouan's awareness returned to the beach. Upon opening his eyes, everything shined clear. His organs, nerves, hearing, all pristine. He shoved the boat into the open sea and jumped aboard. The circle of Muin Temple masters disbanded. Master Yurik approached a large tapestry. He stared, probing it, almost as if he were becoming one with it like Elouan had done with the flame. A stinging beneath his right armpit interrupted the moment. He placed his left hand gently upon the silk robes, then cracked a knowing grin. Master Perrin noticed and edged close, giving him a look of expectant inquiry. Yurik nodded in the affirmative. 125 small stone huts covered the expanse of cleared mountainside just beyond the Muin Temple walls. Each pod rose about half a body's height, with a single door constructed of thick wood. Master Perrin and Master Amelia assisted Master Yurik into one of the small huts. The beloved elder sat in meditative position and faced the open doorway, looking calm and serene. All around them, other monks entered their own personal pods. Some sat in meditation, while others laid themselves down on their backs, all assisted by members of the temple. Those taking residence showed signs of the disease, whether it be a bubo, the plague rash, or a spasmodic cough. The 125 pods represented a quarter of the temple's population, a lesser amount than the loss of those in the cities and towns across the continent, mainly because the coolness of the alpine climate kept it less virulent. Nonetheless, a quarter of the school, including one of its most venerable masters, were fated to make the transition into spirit by a result of the scourge. They took it in stride. They accepted that on a certain level, an agreement existed in the larger portion of their souls to transition in such a manner. They did not consider themselves victims. Rather, the disease was the means to their physical ends, and it was predestined to happen. The pods gave each of them the privacy to experience the transition in their own way. It honored each one's individual spiritual journey while at the same time quarantining them from the members still in good health. Whether or not there would be more brethren afflicted, no one knew, but the response would be the same. Once the plague pods were occupied, the remaining monks closed and locked the doors. But they didn't leave their brothers and sisters behind. Instead, the healthy banded together, the remaining 375 and more, and created a border around the expanse. They knelt before a post of unlit torchwood, each monk with his own post, and began the procession. A single flame passed along the group, going from one to another, moving through the hands of Golda and Weimark, who lit their own posts. When the flames reached the last hand, the entire pod village glowed inside the ring of fantastic, brilliant orange light. Then the mass hummed the Requiem. It echoed straight to the heavens. It took another 2 days upon the sea to find Villa de la Bay, following the schools of fish just below the surface of the aqua blue water as they brought guidance. After rowing through several floating bodies, Elouan bounded onto the docks before the boat touched the rigging post. In no time, he found himself on the main street running through town. A rushing friar nearly hit him head on, but remarkably steered clear at the last second.
Come back! I must make confession.
The familiar voice came from Dr. Mashi, sitting on the ground near the edge of the cobblestone street, still dressed in the plague doctor robes. He had removed the bird-beak mask to reveal his jaundiced face, bloodshot eyes, and black tokens peeking out upon the edges of his neck. Elouan rushed to cradle the dying physician in his arms.
You ready to hear my confession?
You have done your very best to help others. No sin could ever diminish the value of your deeds.
Thank you. How does this end?
You will find yourself floating above your body. You'll notice a silver thread connected to your belly. It will break. Then you will rush down a tunnel toward a bright white sun. It will embrace you with the most beloved warmth you have ever felt. So much love. And you will be taken to the fields of heaven, which are more beautiful than all the fields of earth, with the scent of aromatic flowers and petals of the most brilliant colors.
Sounds beautiful.
It is.
This mortality has opened my eyes to the oneness of life we all share.
And there is still much more you will see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elouan closed Mashi's eyes and gently laid him on the ground. The sound of scraping drew him to recognize a young lady dragging a bloated body from an apartment. The ruined corpse was that of a Thori, the man who gave his wife Isabel to the papal authorities. The lady disposing him was the maid he had left her for. She returned Elouan's stare with a nonplussed resignation as she let her deceased lover fall carelessly on his disease-ravaged face. She slowly returned inside, having grown cold to the reality of the Grim Reaper's visit. Elouan saw a trio of dirty ruffians, faces wrapped, hammering on an apartment's entrance.
Anyone alive in there?
Do I know you?
Just checking.
They moved on to the next building. Elouan knew they weren't really concerned to find people alive. Rather, they were looking for quite the opposite. A woman wearing a brilliant white robe surprised Elouan as she suddenly walked by. She kept her back to him, moving with a sense of purpose. There was something about her. Whereas everyone else on the street appeared beaten from the pestilence, this stranger walked with vibrancy, an energy that towered above the carnage. The brown color of her hair reminded him of his mother, but he had failed to see her face when she crossed his path. Nonetheless, he took note her white robe had a slight shimmer to it, though it was difficult to ascertain if the glistening was a play of the daylight or a feature of the robe itself. Curious, he followed her. Not once did the lady peer back to acknowledge him. She just kept walking. A corner here, an alleyway there. She paid no attention to the corpses lining the route. It was as if she was heading to an important meeting and couldn't be distracted. The mystery of her captured Elouan. At first he wanted to call out, but then decided it more important to just follow her lead. Instead, he reached her direction with an expanded awareness of mind, but was unable to gain anything of value as if she wasn't there. Nevertheless, she appeared as solid and material as anyone, perfectly clean in the obscure white robe.
Bring out your dead! Bring them out!
This is the poor part of town. No one is going to pay.
The whole town's gone poor. Keep walking.
The lady marched by the livery Rachel used, then entered the stairwell of a tenement across the street. Elouan followed her up the steps and watched her enter an apartment on the 3rd floor, leaving the door ajar. When he arrived, he looked in to see she had disappeared. However, Gladwin lied alone on a cot, his chest bare, a bubo bursting from an armpit. Elouan realized the woman was a spirit, meaning to lead him here to find the dying boy. Elouan carefully wrapped his fingers around Gladwin's right ear and allowed his own energy to dive into the youth. As the blending thickened, the images seared into the child's consciousness came to the surface. His mother and father hurriedly packing clothes and minor household items into rucksacks, while he remained on the bed, ravaged by the disease. He had begged them not to leave, but they acted as if they weren't hearing him, nay, as if he was invisible to them. He screamed for their love, yet they still fled, leaving him alone in the darkness.
I'm sorry. I cannot speak for why they abandoned you. What is your name? Tell me, Gladwin, when you grow up, when you get over this sickness, what would you like to be?
The response prompted Elouan to stare wistfully at Gladwin's wooden sword propped against the wall. It represented the hopes and dreams of a life that could now never be lived.
I promise you will be the greatest crusader this world has ever known. You fight valiantly and are embraced joyously by the light of the creative source. You are there now, feeling its love, the true love of a divine parent, never to be left alone again. You are taken in this Father's embrace and given the wondrous plume of a crusader's victory. Mother! Why have you sent me here? Where is my father? I wish to leave this place.
You cannot leave, as there are still things yet to be done.
Elouan spun around to see her standing behind him. Rosa was more beautiful than his memories of her. Her skin was as smooth and supple as a newborn baby's. Her brown hair plaited and braided, her robe a glistening white with a faint glow emanating from behind. Indeed, it had been her who had led him through the streets to this very apartment.
You knew the nature of this path, and you accepted it with joy.
You cannot expect me. You cannot expect anyone to continue in a way such as this, even knowing what I know.
About what? That every moment is precious, no matter where or when you are? And that we are all connected as one, despite such beliefs to the contrary. It is precisely because of those beliefs that you are on this journey. Finding your father is your pilgrimage of service in this life, a task that is more about yourself and him than it has ever been for me.
You beseeched me, begged me to find him.
Of course I did. I had to, because you know, for many, time is short.
Why can you not tell me where he is, and I will go there?
As I have said when you've asked before, the map is not mine to reveal. It is you and your father's, and those you share the journey with.
From where you live, is it not already complete?
From where I live, all possible outcomes are known and understood. But from where you live, in your head and heart, you only experience one. And that one outcome will ripple like a rock tossed in the water of your soul for the rest of your life, as well as his. You both learn from its furrow and return such knowledge to life's greater oneness. I cannot tell you where your father is, for that would betray the path you are on, the path that your friends share with you, the path he also treads, and what all life is seeking to unfold through your expressions. Where and when must be fulfilled naturally by your own selves for all life's authentic realization.
How much time do I have?
Like you, I can only inspire.
Elouan took another glance at Gladwin. Considering what he knew of the disease, from its desolation across Asia and India, and now experiencing it firsthand, the body of a victim right here before him, the plague was a race against time. Unfortunately, he lacked any awareness of what his next steps had to be.
Regardless of the outcome, Elouan, the skies of eternity, they still live on.
Elouan nodded, but didn't feel any better. She was right in the sense that no one ever died. However, at least in respect to his own mission, failure in finding his father would mean a dire development for both his and Ranulf's greater life, as he came to understand it. Physical existence was only one thread of the greater tapestry of spirit, Yet if that thread were to be torn away, the wholeness of the soul would be impoverished by the loss of lessons only a material life could instill. Rosa had pleaded to Elouan that Ranulf may feel himself condemned to eternal darkness were he not to intervene, since he was unable to be influenced by her spirit due to cultural conditioning. At the same time, the quest would also unfold what Elouan's greater self was hoping to learn. All of that now hung in the balance because of the plague.
I will always love you, my sweet son.
Elouan continued staring at Gladwin, wondering what lessons the child was supposed to have learned. He glanced up in the hope the spirit of his mother might give him a clue, like his beloved master Uric would do. But she had vanished. Elouan carefully wrapped Gladwin's body in a blanket and then carried him out of the apartment. Each footfall down the outer stairs pressed more deeply into his psyche the reality of death's hand reaching to end his quest. It was surreal. He had to trust in the web of life to unite him with Ranulf. Maybe that was his overall lesson in the current disparity of his life's unfoldment. It certainly left one feeling helpless, with no inkling of a true map to salvation. Perhaps it was this same notion of grave vulnerability that compelled some of the townsfolk into behavior they would have never considered prior to the outbreak. Elouan considered this as he alighted onto the sidewalk and witnessed the rogue wanderers coming out of apartments with their arms filled with loot. From the smiles and laughter, they clearly didn't mourn the death of their neighbors, but relished in it.
Look at all this I found!
Elouan gently laid Gladwin's body on the ground as he watched the looters compare riches. He noted one of them was a tower watchman from the gate, still wearing his uniform.
Let us honor the dead for giving us these many valuable treasures so that we can better live.
Yes.
Hail!
From peasant to noble.
Elouan suddenly wondered about Duke Aurele, also his wife, even Jehan. When Elouan arrived at the Duke's estate, the damage was already evident. The immaculate gardens sat shoddy and untended. Many of the plants snapped or stripped of their foliage, and the horses had taken up pasture in the courtyard. A thief raced out with a wheelbarrow full of dining bowls, rolled up tapestries, and one of the dining hall chandeliers.
Better get in there before it's all gone.
With urgency, Elouan raced inside. Indeed, all valuables had been stolen and the rooms left in shambles. Broken ceramics were spilled about, statues fallen and fragmented by the inadequate strength of would-be looters. Even worse, bodies of plague-ridden servants laid where they had taken their final breaths. Elouan sprinted through the dining hall, up the stairs, and into the Duke's bedchamber, where he had been with Rachel on that fateful night. A thief stopped at the very moment of seizing a memento when he saw Elouan clamber in. Thinking better of it, he left the piece on its mantle and raced from the room. Elouan didn't stop him. Instead, his gaze froze in remorse at what lay before him. Aurele, sitting up in bed, cradling Beatrix in a final loving embrace, both rotting from the pestilence. The Duke's eyes were still open, but glazed over, gone for days. Though he had only known them for one night, their hospitality, along with the Duke's own course to personal redemption, had filled him with love for both of them. He had hoped to know them better, perhaps after finding his father. Now, all that was impossible. With crushing gloom, Elouan closed Arale's eyes. A quick search through the manor told Elouan that Jehan had fled. Finding the house absent of all inhabitants, as well as most of its goods, Elouan went outside to survey the grounds. Here, too, the estate echoed of total abandonment. Elouan rounded up the horses and returned them to the stables. With the courtyard clear, he set about gathering all manner of broken bushes, twigs, and wooden furniture from inside the home and fashioned 2 large heaps in the open yard. Under the dark azure skies of twilight, he sat naked between the burning pyres and meditated. While his mind floated detached, his body sweated profusely from the heat of the flames. This was by design. He theorized if there was any essence of plague within his physical tissues, the heat would likely kill it, and his body would secrete it out. What's more, he had set over the flames a ruined bowl found in the kitchens, wherein he placed his clothes to be purified by the boiling water. When the darkness of night fell, Elouan grew the bonfires higher and hung his clothes to dry. He stood tall while continuing to meditate, bathed in sweat and wrapped in smoke, with an occasional wisp of flame billowing toward his skin. Not once did he get burned. Instead, he used the fires to re-establish the mental and spiritual armor of the eternal flame within. Cleansed by the crucible, Elouan dressed and returned to the Duke's chamber with a piece of burning wood in hand. With reverence and a thoughtful prayer, he placed the flaming tip to the sheets and lit the bed afire. The flames quickly consumed the noble couple, then soon jumped to the wall and swept across the chamber, taking with it any remaining valuables. Within minutes, Elouan committed the entire manor to the wildfire. After freeing the horses from the barn, which was also sure to burn, Elouan strode calmly from the estate. The house raged like a beacon in the starry night behind him, while the horses galloped on way to newfound liberation. Few left their apartments to notice the huge blaze dissolving the Duke's manor into ashes. Some pointed fingers, others made hushed comments, but overall, no one showed any sense of alarm. If anything, the whole episode seemed just another sad event in a long list of calamities. It made Elouan's return to the heart of the city devoid of obstacles or explanations. His only goal now was to make the town gate and head out to the countryside, where he could better connect with nature and perhaps receive the clues needed to locate Ranulf. The sparse glow of street lanterns guided him. Not all were lit, but enough to make out the path at the edges of the roadway, with the center of the street remaining cast in darkness. He watched a looter run from an apartment and stop abruptly, as if to avoid hitting something in the blackness.
Oops! Sorry about that. Not wanting to intrude.
The road curved, then straightened. Up ahead, the glow of a tavern spilled out into the roadway, with patrons bobbing in and out.
to all Jeremiah and his kin. A town for each of them.
Matthias stepped out and lumbered to his usual spot in the street to relieve himself.
He was a grand old lad.
He was a bastard!
The patron landed in the piss gutter. Matthias doused the poor loser with his own personal stream.
They'll make another one, and the next lot of you that dies, you will also be bastards.
The door flashed open again, and Marie emerged, dressed in only a chemise. Elouan recognized her and instantly felt miserable. She leaned on Matthias.
If you come back inside, I promise to show you something else you can do with that thing.
Best enjoy it while I still can, eh?
Life may be over come tomorrow.
Matthias put an arm around her. Marie was only half his size, which made the pairing even more glaring. Matthias sopped her with a kiss and then dragged her into the pub. Elouan's muscles stiffened. He imagined the eternal light sheathing him like the cocoon of a butterfly. With reluctance, he put himself in the tavern's open doorway and gained witness to Elouan resigned himself to the depravity. He closed his eyes to regain composure. Elouan spotted the portcullis 3 blocks away, its gate wide open.
Get away from there!
Elouan could make out the skinny bloke in the dim light of the street lanterns. The rogue waved a broken flagpost to frighten a pair of dogs from a corpse they had dragged into the street. The canines deserted the body as he thrashed the pole closer. The man knelt, then pulled something from the corpse's neck. The object twinkled in the light and cast a prism upon the ground. Elouan's crystal still attached to the leather string. Elouan saw that it was William. He glanced at the tenement where the dogs had stolen the cadaver to see more corpses lying outside a door, possibly William's entire family.
You looking upon something here, boy?
I gave that to him. It stays with him or it comes with me.
Come and get it.
Humphrey shivered near unconsciousness on the floor, consumed by fever. Rachel huddled over him, terrified of his fall, yet outraged as a trio of looters ransacked their meager home. The fiends were a pair of corpse carriers accompanied by the gatekeeper from the city's portcullis. One of the corpse carriers stood over her, wielding a dagger to keep her on the floor.
We're not even dead, yet you come in here and steal our things?
Just trying to survive. We do not pray to hurt you.
The second corpse carrier found a coin pouch inside a drawer.
Ah, looky here. Not that the markets are really open, you know.
Maybe a better day tomorrow.
Dear Lord in heaven, you have to leave us with something.
You will just be dead along with him in the next few days.
Then I'll probably be the one carrying out your bodies.
Who are you?
It was Elouan, with William's crystal tied securely around his throat. He nonchalantly stepped toward the carrier hovering over Rachel. The goon swiped the dagger, but as easily as taking a breath, Elouan nabbed the offending arm. With a stylistic twist, he bent the appendage backward at the shoulder. The sheer pain forced the thief to drop the weapon. In a flash, Elouan cinched the wrap around the bandit's head, held his skull arrested, then swiped his legs out from under him. As he fell, Elouan slammed the thief's face into his kneecap, breaking his nose. A rush of blood suddenly washed over the cloth mask. The second carrier tucked the money pouch in his belt and leaped. In an effortless movement, Elouan's feet rooted to the floor and he arched his torso to perfectly slam an open palm into the enemy's chest. A half second later, Elouan flew into the air. With a flash of his foot, the money pouch tore from the fiend's waist and landed in Elouan's hand before it could hit the ground. Then, with a swift spiral, the thief's jaw cracked behind Elouan's heel. Before he can make another move, Elouan felt the gatekeeper on his back, wrapping his arms tightly around his chest and fumbling quickly for his throat. Without warning, Elouan lowered his chin, crouched, then flew forward in a rolling somersault. The unexpected twirl catapulted the thug onto the floor, but he was swiftly back on his feet. With lightning speed, Elouan attacked using his feet and hands. In a stunning display, he tossed the coin purse into the air while in the midst of hitting and spinning, catching it after each blow. He nailed the gatekeeper's face, chest, spleen, knees, then put him squarely on the floor.
You're the devil.
Elouan backed off, giving him room to climb to his feet. He hoped the fiend would gather his buddies and depart without any more upset. But, of course, he underestimated the man's pride. Instead, the sentry yanked a dagger from his boot. Before the watchman could complete a thought, the blade stapled the ceiling from a swipe of Elouan's foot. Elouan cocked an eyebrow, challenging the fiend for more if he desired.
Demon? You bloody demon?
The trio of looters stumbled together, one holding his bloody nose, the other his broken jaw, the gatekeeper his ruined pride, and fumbled into the street. Rachel swiftly gathered a shard of the broken door brace the trio had smashed when they invaded. She hurled it.
You bitch!
Rachel responded by flinging the other half.
You're going to pay for this!
You come near me again and I will give you every bit of the plague.
Rachel turned in, seeing Elouan already at Humphrey's side. She knelt beside, looking embarrassed.
Bless you.
You're not bad yourself.
He has what's come to us all.
Elouan gave her a sudden look. Rachel knew it meant he was getting ready to do something most people would not be ready to witness. He closed his eyes, then took Humphrey by the ear, making that inner link she had seen him do with Father Jacques.
She is here for you, Humphrey. You can't see her. She's wearing a white robe, smiling.
A tear blossomed and fell down Rachel's cheek. Elouan was talking about her mother, Emma. Indeed, in Elouan's eyes, he could see Humphrey's beloved wife as plainly as he did Rosa earlier. She had long dark hair like her daughter, glistening eyes. She wore a white robe similar to Rosa's, with a faint glow emanating from the back. She knelt beside Humphrey, caressing his temples, with a hopeful and expectant grin of anticipation.
You can let go of your guilt now about her death. It was meant for her to go when she did, so you and Rachel could have the life that you lived, so you could build the bond that you share.
Rachel took her father's hand. Humphrey squeezed it, however slight.
Let go now, Humphrey. Release that guilt. Forgive yourself. Forgive.
For a brief second, Elouan could sense Humphrey's spirit had lifted out of the flesh, but fell back in. Emma also noticed. Her smile widened, ready to lovingly receive him.
That's it. Now take her hand. She has missed you just as much as you have missed her. You can leave Rachel behind now. Reach. Reach.
A grin broke across Humphrey's face, and he suddenly exhibited an unusual serenity. Though his eyes remained closed, he looked up at someone standing beside Elouan. He released Rachel's grip to move his hand for the offering, taking hold of the angelic savior. For a brief moment, the hand held steady, then fell listlessly in concert with his final breath. Rachel stared. She felt her father's presence vanish from the room. Now all that lay before her was a shell, which meant she was truly alone. She fell into Elouan's arms. Rachel raised her eyes to his, humbled and honored by his compassion. The recognition suddenly tunneled Elouan's senses. The room disappeared, and she was all he could see, all he could feel. A field of magnetism swelled and brought Rachel's mouth passionately to his. In that moment, the tragedy of the outside world stalled, and a new force, powerful, multidimensional, poured from their souls, going to the other. Their embrace tightened. Their singular energies merged beyond the confines of the flesh. They continued the kiss, refusing to separate the connection. Their combined spirits cried out for greater union, so they extended the kiss into a series of mere moments in which they could relieve themselves of the clothing getting in the way of their bodies bonding. Within moments, they were naked on the floor, joined, enraptured, experiencing more than the sum of their beings. Next time.
That's the devil!
He's not normal.
He has done nothing but help others.
Whatever you do, stay away from the burial. Forgive me.
In one day, I saw it wipe out Ernard's whole family. The longer we stay, the more I think we are doomed.
I knew this would happen.
I have the lab. It's on me.
You will endure, as all life, endures.
What are they doing here?
They have come to take me to my father.